Everybody. Thanks for joining us. We'll get to introductions in just a minute, but remember this hour and 15 minutes is dedicated around industrial feedback to higher education about opportunities coming up, deficiencies we see, how can we help students find STEM careers if that's what they want in the state of West Virginia? How can we prepare them for the careers they're looking out for? So my name is Craig Thomas. I'm one of the two facilitators today. We're going to go through just a couple minutes of introductions of four different people, and then we'll get started. Okay, so I'll change it over to Adam. I guess before we do that, I'll go through the ground rules of this session. So facilitators, we will introduce a subject, and then to get the ball rolling, Adam's going to call on somebody random in the audience to try to make sure different people get a chance to say their opinion. We're going to try to spend 15 minutes or less on each topic. There are 6 topics. And it'll be followed by a kind of a general question answer session where someone in the crowd may have a question or a topic they want to talk to other professionals with. We're going to document the answers without documenting your company. So we're not going to say employee X from DuPont said this. We're just going to, these opinions are your opinions personally, not so much tied back to your company, whatever profession you're doing, because I know sometimes companies have rules around that kind of thing. And the last one, I guess, I can't enforce this rule, but we're asking that you speak up. Again, this hour and 15 minutes is for us. There's no incorrect answers. We need to hear the perspective of different sectors of our state to better prepare our students. So that's kind of the ground rules. I'm going to turn it over to Adam so he can talk to you. Adam is the second facilitator in this session. Adam?
Thanks, Craig. Just wanted to give you a quick bio on who we are. I work for a company called Chemours, was formerly DuPont, and there's my education. But I'm a senior research chemist at Chemours right now, and I'm in the Teflon business. And I showed the picture over on the right, the top right, just to show that, we employ lots of different positions within our group. There's a few managers in this photo, a few PIs, what we would call principal investigators like myself. These are senior engineers or chemists. Then we have technicians, which are sometimes bachelor's levels, sometimes not, sometimes just purely on the job training, sometimes certified through short, 6 to 8 month courses. And then again, just some other engineers, but wanted to make the point that, we're looking for all levels, let's say, of role, and I think that'll become very obvious throughout our discussion. That's one of the main topics today. The bottom picture is a photo of some students from an on-site experience that we hosted at Chemours along with a lot of support from Fairmont State. There's one non-student in this photo, and it's hard to tell who it is, but it's Erica Harvey, and she's a professor at Fairmont State. I saw that she was on the call, but just want to introduce myself. And again, we'll try to keep this rolling, but hope to hear some really good input today.
All right, thanks, Adam. I'm going to slide 2 here. Again, my name's Craig Thomas. I'm a chemist for a company called Solvay, which is a chemical plant of about 200 people in Pleasants County, which for those of you who don't know is Mid-Ohio Valley, just north of Parkersburg, West Virginia. I've been there for about 14 years. I also went to college in West Virginia. I also grew up in rural West Virginia. So you think of the First 2 Network, we're trying to reach first generation students in STEM majors. I think I fit that bill as well. But the action shot I have here is from a career day at Williamstown High School. Again, the chemical industry, at least, is very much about outreach to local schools, high school, colleges, whatever that be, to try to make sure everyone is aware of opportunities in STEM professions in West Virginia. Because I think to convince high school students to go to college for a STEM major, I mean, you want to paint the picture of what the careers that are out there. So we try to do that, at least with my company, as often as we can. But I guess I'm also a facilitator too today. I'm also going to turn it over. We have 2 other contributors that are going to introduce themselves. They helped us with the prep of the slides, a quick run through of how this might work, and we really appreciate their input. So I'm going to actually change the slide to Charles. He's going to give us his bio.
Afternoon. My name's Charles Jarrell. I'm a manager for training and development at Toyota Motor Manufacturing in Buffalo, West Virginia. For those of you that aren't familiar with where Buffalo is, it's on the Kanawha River, basically right at the county line between Putnam and Mason County. So the plant was sited so that we're 45 minutes from Charleston and 45 minutes from Huntington, West Virginia. So there's a lengthy commute for just about everybody. I have a degree from Marshall University. Before I go any further, we do a thing here at Toyota. I'll tell you my safety commitment, and that is to train all team members to follow COVID-19 protocols. In addition to being the manager for training and development, I'm a regional master trainer for North America for engine assembly. So I'm responsible for ensuring that all of our North America people learn the very basics of how to assemble a product. In the past, I've served as think of me as a efficiency expert. We refer to it as TPS. I've done studies at, with the exception of our Baja, California plant, I've been at every plant in North America and a lot of our suppliers as well. I worked as a group leader in both assembly and machining. And I was a group leader is the first level of salaried supervisor. And then I served as a team leader and before that as a team member here at Toyota, West Virginia. I look forward to the discussion with you today. That photo is from a trip I took over to Japan. Those were my sensei trainers and one of my partners who went over to be a master trainer also. So with that, I'll mute my mic and turn you over to the next fellow, which would be Eric.
Good afternoon. My name is Eric King. I've got 10 years of experience here in South Charleston, West Virginia at Matrix. We occupy the former world headquarters R&D for Union Carbide, and we perform contract R&D for companies from very small startups to large multinationals. We take projects from the ideation stage all the way up to commercial. My background is I have a BS in chemistry from WVU, so I'm also local, and have a PhD in physical organic chemistry, and it says the Ohio State University. I also did my postdoc with the DoD there as well. My current role is a chemist and analytical SME, which is subject matter expert. But we're all kind of, being a small company of around 120 individuals, we're all Jacks and Jills of all trades and hopefully masters of some of them. But that's a brief introduction. I'll kick it back to Craig.
All right. Thanks, Charles and Eric. We appreciate your bio. So now it's time to move into the panel discussion. So again, we're going to introduce a topic. You'll find the questions are fairly open-ended. And again, we're looking for your opinion. There's students, there's educators on this phone. They want to hear what industry has to say as a feedback loop. And we're talking short-term, mid-term, long-term futures of STEM industry in West Virginia. Okay, so I'm going to introduce the topic, and then Adam is going to call on somebody in the crowd to at least start the discussion with their opinion. So if you look, we'll start very general. So we're talking about the next decade. You can see in a lot of industrial environments, including the ones that Adam and I are from, the next 10 years is a little scary because there's a lot of retirements looming out there, a lot of retirements for heavily educated, heavily experienced people. And we're looking to see if that is common across the other industries in West Virginia, the other sites in West Virginia. And if it is, we're asking what two critical backgrounds or positions at your place of work are the ones that kind of keep you up at night? Like, how in the world are we ever going to replace these people? I have my own answers, but I'm not going to sway the crowd. So Adam, why don't you pick somebody from the crowd randomly and see if we can get this started.
I'd be happy to do that. I guess maybe we should just offer it up if anybody wants to volunteer first, to save their attendee the trouble. Because I see a couple names of people I recognize, so it may not be at random. If there's somebody out there that wants to volunteer.
I'll volunteer. what keeps, so I work at the Green Bank Observatory, and yes, indeed, there are, we're a small, 100-member staff, but there are a lot of retirements coming up, and we're very technical place. And what keeps us up at night are those single person holders of so much wisdom in the computer science division, those ones that know how the programs that run the biggest telescope in the world work, and they are reaching retirement age. So particularly in all that software development aspect, that's keeping us up at night, because when they retire, if we don't do it right, that knowledge could be lost, or some of that knowledge could be lost.
Thanks, Sue Ann. So that was Sue Ann. She's one of the other PIs, let's say, of the first two network original grants. I appreciate you speaking up, Sue. Anybody else want to volunteer?
I'm not industry, but I'm also with Leadership in First Two, and I'm a secondary math coach. So I know that I can speak for the entire great state of West Virginia when we can say we are really worried about math teaching vacancies, particularly in secondary.
I'll piggyback on that. This is Deb Hemler. I'm a professor of science education at Fairmont State University. And when I first got to Fairmont State, there were quite a few people interested in teaching science. That is not the case. I have no student teachers out there right now. I'm looking at maybe 3 next year, no physics at all, very little chemistry right now. It's kind of scary. It used to be you had to substitute teach for a year or so before you got a job. Now they're taking them before they even graduate and paying them to student teach.
Wow.
I'll jump in from another sector. My name is Sarah Riley, and I am one of the PIs on the first 2 projects. I run a community educational nonprofit, does a lot of informal education, and I can tell you for sure that in the nonprofit industry and in the social justice world, we have a massive problem with leadership transition that's happening. It's going to be happening all across Central Appalachia as we see those leaders go. And we see a lot of leaders that have come up through nonprofits go out into more lucrative industries. And I think that's just such critical infrastructure for growing these kinds of pipelines and community partnerships.
Thanks, Sarah. Maybe one more, and if we have to or want to, we can always circle back. But just so we make sure we hit all the topics, one other person want to contribute?
So this is Charles from Toyota. I can chime in from our perspective in manufacturing. We've had a large, well, we've already started to experience it. Our skilled maintenance technical capability, they're at the leading edge of the retirement bubble, and it's a big enough wave coming for us. We've not been able to hire to replace those folks. We've actually had to partner with Bridge Valley Community College to try and develop a program to actually act as an intake, but we still foresee a large gap in our technical capability from a skilled maintenance perspective over the next 5 years.
Thanks, Charles.
Okay. I'll add one in there too, Adam, before we move on.
Please.
In our industry, skilled maintenance as well, skilled instrument techs, and electrical engineering doesn't seem to be a real easy hole to fill in our, you think of chemical plants, they have a lot of electrical engineers, electricians, that kind of thing. Those are very, very tough jobs to fill for us right now. And I think that's common across a lot of the industry in West Virginia. Okay, well, that was a good start, everybody. So you're one of 6 topics down. So moving on, you'll see a lot of these topics kind of intertwine as well. So if you didn't say something on this, you'll get a chance to say it as we move on. Higher education preference. So this is a very simple question that could spark a lot of discussion, but what science, technology, engineering, mathematics degrees does your site or your company, your workplace typically prefer? a lot of plants you go to, industrial sites, seem to have a high concentration of a certain degree. And whatever influence that is, we don't really know. But our question to you is, where you work, does it seem like there's a higher concentration of degrees in, you know, degree X than all the other ones?
So I'll speak up here. My name is Josh Cochran. I'm the manufacturing technology manager for DuPont at our site in Parkersburg. You know, and when you think of DuPont, you say, oh, well, chemies. And, you know, typically when people see the DuPont oval, especially students, you know, you typically don't have any trouble, you know, getting interest from chemical engineers. But just to segue on the last question, and somebody brought up electrical engineering, you know, at this point, even though by the numbers we may actually hire more chemical engineers than any other, the one that we hire a lot more than anyone would expect, and the most difficult to recruit, is electrical engineers. And, you know, I kind of saw this firsthand before I became a technology manager, being an operations manager, because the day-to-day issues that we would get into, you know, almost every single one of them, even though it's a chemical plant, was some sort of automation or automatic system or control system problem, or it could be solved with the control system. So really, you know, my group now, I've got 25 engineers reporting to me, and 17 of those are ChemE, but the rest now are electrical engineer. And really that ratio is going to, I think, over time, going to get more and more leaning heavily toward electrical engineering.
This is Charles from West Virginia again. I have to chime in on that. We are a manufacturing facility. You would think that we would hire a lot of mechanical engineers, but we go more toward the electrical engineers because everything we have is roboticized or controlled by PLCs, and we have to design the equipment and program the equipment. And that is, that's what we have gravitated toward.
Erica asked a question about EE versus electronics engineering technology, maybe the difference between the two and how they fit into your organizations.
Charles, you want to go first, or Josh?
We go more toward the straight up electrical engineering. Toyota's maybe a little different than a lot of places, in that we don't slot somebody in and say, okay, you're an electrical engineer, you're only going to work on electrical, right? Once we get somebody in the door, we treat them more as a generalist. So they'll be assigned activities that will use their electrical engineering degree, but then they will also start to use some mechanical engineering, some of that sort of stuff. So for us, it comes more toward what gets you in the door, and for us, it's electrical engineering degree.
And from a DuPont perspective, I'll be perfectly honest. I'm not really familiar with that second degree. I'm only familiar with the more classic electrical engineering. You know, but what I will say is, you know, as you know, we already have some very large, complex control systems, you know, operating, you know, very high hazard processes. So, you know, these control systems and any future upgrades to them, you know, really rely heavily on, you know, again, what we consider to be the electrical engineering field. And again, that shift will continue as we automate more and more of our processes. But I would have to be educated myself on the latter degree.
I think switching directions just a little bit in terms of, you know, what STEM degrees do we prefer, and maybe back to the first topic and how retirement is affecting the situation. We have all the, you know, the Siemens PCS7 control system stuff, and we've partnered with Bridge Valley to get some students in that have experience there. but the issue is with that particular type of education, they really only know how to operate a control system. And since we're more geared towards an R&D unit than say a Chemours, which is production, we have a lot more process upsets and downtime, and this line plugged and this pump is misbehaving and this thing just, I don't want to say ignited, but self-immolated. So we need folk that have that kind of technical aptitude, but also have a mechanical aptitude. And I find it, that's not really taught well in a university setting. There's not a lot of hands-on stuff, specifically say for chemists. I know myself as an undergraduate, we went through and completed all the coursework you could, and then you had laboratories, which were essentially, you know, kitchen type chemistry, but there was no real honest to God hands-on. Here is an instrument, here is a process, here is a GC, here is an HPLC, could you please run this for me? Oftentimes it was, well, you know, it's 2 o'clock on a Thursday and we got to get out of this lab. Let me just run this HPLC for you and we'll get the results and we'll all get out of here on time. And all that hands-on stuff that we really, really, truly need in an R&D setting is just, you know, glossed over.
As I guess an academic, I wanted to defend that position, but not really, because it may be an indefensible position of why do we want to get out so fast? Is it the students want to get out, the TAs want to get out? Yeah, both. But is that good? Are they really in it for the proper reasons, I guess is a term some people might use. But the other question is, cost for the equipment. Some people would say we're protecting that equipment from the student use, and exactly like you're saying, no, we're protecting those students from an education. Should that be our jobs, to stand in front of the instrument and make sure that no student can disturb it or destroy it, or that self-immolation that I think I just heard about, that is a part of real experience. So I'm wondering, what is the solution to that we don't feel like we need to protect our equipment from our students?
I'll be selfish and say that our solution has been internships. Send them our way. We will put them to work. The difference between, say, an internship where we are and maybe some other places that are larger is we don't turn our interns into bottle washers. And that's partly for selfish reasons, because obviously we get to utilize a warm body to go and perform a task, but it's also that they get something out of it. And for instance, we take a lot of students in from West Virginia State just because of the proximity, and they've all been excellent. We all put them to work, and at the beginning of whatever their term is, they don't know, you know, the inner workings of any instrumentation, and by the end of it, they're running GCs on their own. They're troubleshooting them. They're able to tell you what went wrong and what is right, and start them up and shut them down. And when we send them back to the universities, we have, honest to God, I can't believe it, but they have gone and instructed instrumental classes themselves. And like, okay, I can take this part of this over, because they've had more hands-on than anything else. So that helps a lot, is just that hands-on. And we're trying to do what we can do, but you know, we're only so big. I think I would have benefited a lot from a hands-on internship like that when I was at that stage.
Just the real experience. We're not doing it at our universities. It may be a time aspect, which you've kind of suggested, you know, let's get out of there and do something else that must be of higher value, or maybe not, but you're suggesting a lot of time input per particular student, I think, and that's just not our model right now. It's a mass manufacturing of people, high throughput, get them out of there as fast as possible. I don't see how we can succeed that way. So I appreciate hearing about your internships, and I'll keep that in mind.
That's, I think, an advantage to smaller schools too. Schools like, you know, your smaller ones like West Virginia State and Fairmont State, they have so much more, the class sizes to instructor ratio is so much more favorable in terms of that hands-on kind of training and interaction, where, you know, when I TA'd at Ohio State, my professor was teaching 325 students per quarter. They're on the quarter system at the time. And the students did not interact with the professor at all. They interacted with us. And you can see how that could be, vastly improved upon with smaller class sizes. But
Now, an alternative to that, though, is for my I don't have an internship program at the DuPont facility. I actually have a co-op program, and the reason I only operate with co-op, multi-rotational co-op, is because normally we don't see enough in just one term or one internship to be able to give them enough practical experience that we're looking for them to get. Likewise, it's not enough time for us to evaluate their performance. And where we have issues, frankly, is more with like West Virginia Tech, where because it's so small, typically I don't get a lot of interest for co-ops out of there because they just can't get their class schedule aligned with a co-op schedule. And so it's not often that I get someone from West Virginia Tech, but even though they have a very good engineering program down there.
Now, talking about all of the hands-on activities, and one of the things that I think academia could really get some help with is the chemistry, being one of the topics, is often viewed as one of the smaller departments on college campuses, and administrators, they question, well, why do we need to have chemistry at all the different schools if they're all going to be small departments and not graduating a lot of majors? And just getting the industry to say, hey, there's going to be a lot of retirements and we need the skills to continue. We need people to speak up and tell the provost and presidents, we need more chemistry. We need more people to prepare West Virginia's future in this industry.
Mike, I think that's a really good point. And us folks with STEM degrees, when I found out that there were 5 questions left, I asked Jade, our administrator here, how much time we had left. So I divided the number of questions by how much time we had left, and I ended up with about 9 minutes per topic. So let's go ahead and move on, and we can circle back if we need to.
Okay. Yeah, and we have a time gap at the end. We can sum all this up for people. So topic 3, location and retention. I think, I know when I joined the First Two Network, one of the statements I made is my company has to look outside of West Virginia for almost every new hire. We almost always bring someone in from out of state. The question is that normal across industry in West Virginia? As in, where do you find most of your new hires? And if you hire someone from, not the tri-state area, we'll say, not Ohio, Kentucky, Maryland, West Virginia, what is your realistic thought around how long you think this person will stay in our state? So we're looking for anyone's experience and comments on this.
Like to open it up to somebody that hasn't yet spoken at first, and if we don't get someone new, we can open it up to everyone.
I think they're begging you to pick on somebody, Adam.
I think so.
I was going to chime in that it's 2 years. If primarily our technician staff, the technical staff are all from our area locally, that's just the easiest way to do it. But our master's, PhD level tend to be from out of state, and 2 years, and then they move on to something else.
And when you say they move on to something else, what does that look like?
Bigger city.
Just same comparable role, just quote unquote better place. Okay.
Better place, yeah. I won't say a better working situation, but certainly a larger city. Like, we interviewed somebody last week, and one of the first questions was, my wife wants to know, do you all have a Whole Foods? Sure don't.
Where's the nearest Target? Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'll chime in on that too, to pile on what Eric was saying. If we recruit from outside of the West Virginia area, our experience is 2 years. And we have a clawback provision. So if we relocate somebody to come into our facility, that's the window is 2 years. And then the other struggle point for us is if we even bring somebody in who's straight out of college, who's not from the immediate tri-state area or a native of the tri-state area, they're gone within 2 years because they've got Toyota on their resume and they can move on to quote unquote, bigger, brighter places to go. It's just hard to compete with that.
Our human resources person attributes that to millennials, to an age group. Although I feel like growing your own talent in West Virginia is a good insurance against that attrition after 2 years. But she says, and you can say, how do you know, Sue Ann? And I'll say, I don't know. She just told me that it's a millennial characteristic or a young professional characteristic that they don't want to be in one spot for a long time. Does anybody have anything to say about that? Is that true in your experience, or is it?
In my experience, it hasn't changed in 25 years of doing High Rock. So I would say, I think we're talking about a Central Appalachia thing here where we need to really, I know a lot of times we talk about a brain drain, but we need to import people and keep them, and we need to grow our own. We need to figure out how we do both of those better.
I think that's a great point, Sarah. And I'm just looking at the chat here, and it seems like a bunch of questions all came in at once, and they're actually all sort of loosely related after we started this topic. And I think it's really important, and I can understand where everybody that wrote these is coming from. And it's basically trying to solve the problem, which is totally fine, but it's around, do our companies, do our industries have, ways or plans or have we networked directly with universities, with high schools in our areas to try to get both through education, but also just internships and just saying, hey, here's the link for our job openings. Yeah. So I don't know what one good question would be to try to answer out of all of those, but if you have a moment, you could kind of scroll through the chat and look at these questions. And if somebody on the call or one of our panelists would like to take a stab at trying to answer one of these, please go ahead.
So I'll jump in real quick and just point out a resource that everybody may not be aware of. So this is maybe going down a level from the discussion we're having, but we've worked with the Education Alliance. It's geared toward disadvantaged high school students here. And we've actually done high school internships. We did our first group of kids, not COVID year, previous year. And we brought them in for 4 weeks, and it was more just to expose them to the possibility of manufacturing as a career. And this year, because of COVID, we had to do it virtually, and we expanded it. Our thought process is try to get them before college level and get them thinking about this as a career and as a potential landing spot for them in the future. So that might be something that you guys could reach out to, is the Education Alliance.
Josh, you said something that really blew my mind, and that is that the college schedules don't align with the co-op schedules, and so you can't get people from West Virginia University Tech. It seems like that's a problem that could be solved somehow.
Typically I don't have any issues recruiting co-ops from WVU, and of course I deal with a lot of other large out-of-state schools as well. But yeah, I don't have any issues with WVU, but West Virginia Tech, we have some graduates from there, and we have very good luck with those. But it's just really hard to get a class schedule to work around a rotating co-op schedule.
To address some of what's been written in the chat here, I think those of us in industry like myself need to get out and pound the pavement and at K through 12 and all the way up to higher education, and let folk know, hey, this is what you can do with a STEM degree. It's not, just pre-med. This is a thing you can do and stay here. And alternatively, I can't just kick the door in at a K through 12 school and say, hey, everybody, I'm here today to talk. So you have to pester us and invite us in and stay after us as well, because I don't know about you all, but I'm sure we all have that deluge of email where it just comes and comes and comes. So stay on top of it. Pester the heck out of us.
I wanted to make a comment about, this is Marjorie Dara. I'm the chair of the math department at WVU, and I used to work at the High Tech Foundation. Someone mentioned high school internships. back when I was at the High Tech Foundation, there was a program, a statewide program called Mulhan Scholars, which took students in their freshman year of high school all the way up through their college years. They gave them internships in industry every summer, and this had great impact on those students. One that was my intern for all of high school and most of college ended up getting a PhD in math. So I think there are other good stories like that. So I do think that that comment about getting them in to internships in high school is very important, and having a statewide program to do that is very important.
One of the things that I see as a real challenge here in terms of what you guys are talking about is that our state is so rural. So we looked at some other similar networks, one in New Orleans, and they did a lot of great stuff, but you know what? All their kids and all their teachers lived within an easy drive of all their industry, and that's just not true in West Virginia. So then you start to have really quickly a whole, to do programs like this that in more urban areas are easier, you have to have a whole sort of residential dealing with housing and lodging and food. How have you guys navigated that? Have you mostly just stayed with people that are close that can like physically get to you without those kinds of challenges?
For high school or for higher up?
Both.
For high school, it's a little difficult for us because we have some insurance policies. But Mike Foltz has actually written grants for Project Seed, and we did have high school students in last summer when COVID wasn't a thing, and it was very great, and I hope that they got a lot from the experience. But he happened to be local, and we do a chemical engineering internship every summer as well, which applications just went live yesterday for, and those, we put them up in a apartment for the summer. We rent them each an apartment room, and I don't know about transport. I guess they've all had vehicles or something, or maybe they carpooled, but it's all worked out fairly well. But we realize we have to invest if we have to get these folks in here.
Yeah, for my co-op program, I finally had to just lease apartments because there was really no other way to handle it. And especially in this area with the oil and gas boom, apartments were just so hard to find. And for a transient population like co-ops, I just finally had to lease them.
Yeah, it's certainly a challenge. Again, just doing a time check, Craig, if you want to go ahead and skip to the next one. Again, we're totally happy to circle back. Again, I think there's a lot of interconnectedness between the topics. So let's try the next one.
All right. So skill deficiencies. It's easy for us to sit back and say, oh, we have to go out of state to hire employee X, Y, Z. The question is to the industrial folks here is, what deficiencies and skills do you notice out of people coming straight out of college? You know, we've touched on it a little bit, the hands-on stuff, the troubleshooting. Any other opinions out there about what certain deficiencies do you see in a student that might be just fresh out of college that you wish they knew already, whether that's hands-on, soft skill, whatever that is?
Craig, could you go ahead and speak to that for your company to get us started?
Oh, sure. I'll speak on that. So I will agree with Eric. It would be great, you know, GCs, LCs, that kind of stuff to be able to troubleshoot. But one of the ones that I'm very, very strongly opinion about is actually the soft skill. Nobody wants to hear this on the phone, public speaking. It was a class I pushed off till the very end of college. I wanted nothing to do with it. And somehow in the last 20 years, I've came over that hump. I don't know what that is, but someone that can use public speaking to influence a group, a team, whatever, is infinitely more valuable than someone that can't. Again, you read these articles online all the time. You don't want to be the smartest person in the room. You want to be the dumbest person in the room around a bunch of smart people that you can lead. And I can't agree with that more, to be honest. But if I look at people that we interview, the ones that can public speak, again, talk to a team proficiently, communicate, or just do better in our industry in particular. So that is my soapbox talk of the day.
Well, and because I'm in the group, I can make fun of it, right? But I think most of us understand that, let's just say that STEM majors aren't traditionally or typically, the socialites that some other majors are, right? So I think it's really extra important, to be honest with you, that ability to transfer information, whatever it is, technical or otherwise, in a group. So I appreciate that.
I have to pile on. We can find really smart people, but having really smart people that can communicate to a group and work in a team. So you can call it soft skills, you can call it communication skills. We spend more time coaching and teaching and training our people internally to level them up once they come on site than anything else. They just simply don't have that when they come to us. That is something that can be learned. Like Craig said, it absolutely can be learned, but it is a major gap that we see for our folks when they come to us.
So I won't pile on, but I will say that yes, that is the #1 deficiency. But just in case we miss any others, probably the #2 for me is methods and root cause failure analysis. They come in, they know a lot of great engineering skills, but the question is how to apply them properly in jobs that nearly all of them have a heavy troubleshooting element to them. And then probably the third for me would be basic economics. I mean, we're in the business to make money, right? We don't, despite the commercials, we don't do all of these things just to, make lives better, right? We got to make money at it while we're making lives better. And, just having some of that basic economics education to where they can make economic decisions on their own projects, and to know figure out whether the view is worth the climb, that type of analysis.
I'd like to hear from some educators now. Does that surprise you? Are you already doing things in your curriculum to try to address that? What do you think about what Charles and Josh just said, and Craig?
I put in the chat written communication skills. I was surprised that didn't come up, but I bet it was encompassed in there, because documentation and writing up that root cause failure analysis so that others can learn from it. We struggle with that at the observatory somewhat.
Absolutely.
I'd also like to add in my role in First Two is to work with the group of our student leaders across the state. And right now we have 109 this year. So that's really exciting. Most of the time when we're preparing public speaking opportunities, which I know we've done with Dave Moore and other folks on this call with Ann Barth, we're thinking about it as helping higher ed or high schools or industry understand the experience of first generation students. And I never had thought about it so clearly as the benefit to the students. So spending your undergrad years getting used to doing public speaking and doing networking, we're doing that. We didn't realize that we were also doing it to this end. So I think that's a really great reminder to me to be articulating the power of what we're doing to the student themselves to be career ready. So thank you for talking about it like this. This really helped me.
Yeah, we focus on that as a reason to get students to take our Try-It class for our STEM teacher preparation program at WVU, because we focus, the first few things you want to get people to know if they're going to be a teacher is how to talk to people, how to listen to people, how to help manage small groups. And we tell them right from the beginning, if you decide you don't like teaching, this is going to make you way more marketable for industry. It's good to have more recent confirmation on that.
We've incorporated a course that focuses in on both research, a course that starts in on both verbal and written communication. And every student that does a research activity here on campus, they additionally have to do a public presentation of that work to learn how to communicate the science to people who are not science people, which may include things like the undergraduate research day at the Capitol, the research symposiums on campus, or the ACS national meetings.
Absolutely, Mike. I have to talk with amongst my other technical oriented PIs. Then I have to talk to technicians. Then I have to talk to managers, no offense, Josh, that may or may not know the technical side of what I'm talking about, to their manager. And so you have to paint the right picture depending on your audience. All that's extremely important. It's great to hear you say that that's already being captured.
I think as an educator who's also an employer, I do not assume that anyone that comes to work for me knows what they actually need to know to do their job. So I think one of the things we really have to think about is a major paradigm shift still for education, that I think those of us that are whatever our businesses are that we're running, right, is that we really need to shift an education paradigm that is not about becoming an expert, that is about becoming an expert learner. And I think we still have a long way to go. And so, you know, what I want to see from people and what I want to prepare people for when they're coming to you guys is to really, really be a nimble, responsive, expert learner who's ready to somersault and dive off the diving board and like fix the car on our way there.
One of the degree options that we have on campus was set up in collaboration with industry on courses and skills that they told us our graduates needed to have. And that was one of the things, that communication skills, being able to talk to one another, was one of those areas that they emphasized needed to be included in the content, not just chemistry classes.
Well, it's a broad array of communications, right? It's everything from email to public speaking, you know, and now in our new world, it's how to do presentations when typically you can't see your audience. You know, and I bring in a lot of co-ops who, you know, in the interview process told me that they did these types of presentations and did all this. And then, you know, I make them give frequent presentations during their co-op experience, because they do need to learn how to, you know, I didn't take offense at the manager comment, but they do not need to learn how to speak to managers, right? Speak to people who are making decisions, right? To, you know, who may not be necessarily interested in all the technical details of something. They're interested in knowing enough of the technical details to understand it, but then how to get to the bottom line to give them the information they need to make decisions. That's a skill that has to be, you know, I'm not seeing it coming from the schools, so I'm coaching and giving feedback to my co-ops to explain to them how to do that. And again, through frequent iterations of presentations. And frankly, the same thing is true of email as well. Just, you know, frankly, how to get to the point. You know, if you need me to do something and you're sending me an email about it, it better be within the first 3 or 4 sentences of the email. Otherwise, you're going to lose me.
Right. Yeah, that's great, Josh. I see that Cindy Argabright has her hand raised, so I'd like to give her an opportunity to comment.
Hey guys, this is Cindy Argabright. I represent the pharmaceutical industry. And what we notice a lot with our new hires is they have workload shock. So getting them to the point of being proficient in their skills with also being efficient in getting out a lot of work, they struggle with that a lot. And I think they're used to small projects on the academic level. And then when they get out in industry, they can't believe how much work that they are responsible for. So if there is some way to bridge that gap and to let them know that this is going to happen, because I see this over and over again, that they are truly, truly shocked. Thanks, guys.
Oh, thank you. We're actually at our time. If anybody has a rebuttal, jump in. If not, we can move to the next question for now.
Okay. Silence says we'll go to the next topic here. Topic 5, ideal candidates. Again, we've been kind of molding this the entire hour or so that we've been talking. But the question to industry, paint a picture for the students and the educators on this call. Your ideal candidate comes out of college and is ready to do what? Don't say public speaking. I think we've already caught that one.
Actually listen. Quite the opposite, because a lot of the younger professionals that we've gotten think that they just spent 4 years learning, or 8 years, or however long learning something, and that they know it all, and that they don't like to take direction well. So if we're going to go that far back, that's, you know, kind of where I'm at. But in general, I think I had written down beforehand, so I may have cheated, and I've got notes in front of me. But the same things that have been mentioned time and time again is mechanically inclined, but, you know, the ability to write well and speak well, but also self-starting and like self-motivated individuals too, because oftentimes, you know, at least with my company, we don't have a boss over top of you saying you have to do this by this date and this by this date and this by this date. You know, you just need to be able to do that yourself and manage your time and projects on your own.
So from Toyota's perspective, we look for a humble candidate, somebody who's willing to take coaching and willing to accept that they don't know. To us, that's very important. That's kind of a hard concept to get, but it's somebody who is willing to go to the source of the problem and thoroughly investigate and to take input and then be able to problem solve from that information rather than trying to solve the problem remotely or from their past experience. I know that sounds kind of vague, but at a high level, that's what we're looking for, is somebody who's humble and who's willing and inquisitive and willing to ask.
And Charles, the culture at Toyota probably helps make that so, right? So the people that come in, that's the culture that you're promoting as well. Do you find that people can mold to themselves to that kind of type?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's a big part of our DNA. That's what we spend a lot of our teaching and training time doing. We call it Genchi Genbutsu, go to the source, right? Go ask the production line worker what the problem is. Don't assume you know it from the data. I mean, the data may point you into the direction of what the problem might be, but you have to ask the person who deals with the piece of equipment on a daily basis and truly get their input. Our culture is set up to encourage that.
Okay. Anyone else want to weigh in on ideal candidate qualities?
I have a question for you guys, and just from the perspective of somebody that also runs a small business. I'm finding that I have so much more in common with you guys than I do with lots of our other like groups of people. I want to be in your group because I understand what you're talking about, even though it's a totally different field. But to say, like, I think that there is such a huge gap between where people are coming out of college and where we need them to be when they're entering the workforce, that I'm interested in ideas or solutions. I know at Hyrax, that's one of the reasons that we created an AmeriCorps program. So people had a year or two, a full-time service, sort of extended on the ground practical learning. So they were really ready to hit the ground running. And I don't know, the role of apprenticeships, like what kind of strategies are you guys taking to bridge that gap between where people are coming out of college and where we need them to be?
So I'll chime in from Toyota's perspective. We just set up a program with WVU. We've developed a leadership development program. We've taken new hire supervisors straight from WVU, and we are not assigning them to a permanent position. We are rotating them on a 6-month basis from site to site to site over a 2-year period to give them a broader perspective of the organization and to teach them that humility and to teach them different ways of thinking, because even within our big shop, there's very different cultures in the individual production lines, right? So they have to be able to navigate that. So that is our most recent attempt to try and bridge that gap, to try and create that humble, inquisitive person who can problem solve for us.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Real quick, when you rotate them, do you mean at the specific Buffalo site or nationwide?
So specifically at Buffalo, so we've got a group that they'll do, like, say, machining, then they're going to go to internal, external logistics, then they're going to go to quality control, and then they're going to do accounting and finance.
Oh.
Yeah, that's a difficult balance to achieve, right? Because obviously within industry, lots of places, there's also a very competitive, there can be a very competitive atmosphere as well, where people are fighting for promotions and good ratings. And so it's a delicate balance of being humble, being respectful, but then also being expected to be the expert in your craft. And so I agree. It takes, some people learn it the hard way by being caught in a situation that's very uncomfortable. Some people are born with it, but I think for the majority, you have to learn it, and having a specific training, I think, is valuable, whether it's in the college level or in the industrial level.
Okay. Shall we move to topic 6?
Yeah, go right ahead. We can open it up generally later.
All right. Last topic. What resources does your company currently use to fill positions? This is probably a less open-ended question than the others. I'll say for my company, we advertise with Workforce West Virginia our new hiring opportunities within the state. What's other people using, so the students on here know where can they go look when your company has an opportunity?
Yeah, for this one, maybe we just go down the list, and we'll start with the facilitators and our 2 panelists. But so for Chemours, Chemours globally is a very large company. So we have our own central job opening site that everything goes into. And so we rely a lot on that, primarily because it's easy for us, and we're big enough that I think, the word gets out that, well, just go to 3M's website, just go to DuPont's website. So I think and I'm not saying that's the best approach. It kind of makes us a little bit lazy maybe, but unfortunately that's by default the best place to find openings for Chemours, any Chemours site. We do go through Workforce West Virginia as well, but it's primarily our own internal site. Charles?
Yeah, so we're not so dissimilar from you. We have our own internal site, but we do have an active co-op program for both just TMMWV, that's our local site here, but we also have a national co-op program. So we kind of have a split track as to how you get into Toyota. So each manufacturing facility has its own recruitment program. West Virginia, obviously, we have our own. We bring in about, on last look, I think it's about 14 different co-ops a year, and that becomes our pathway for like new engineering talent. For our regular production team members, we work with Workforce West Virginia and Coast Employment for production team members. And then for skilled or skilled maintenance, our primary method of recruitment is through the Bridge Valley Alternative Manufacturing Technician Program.
How about you, Eric? Again, you're a smaller company. How do you go about trying to advertise openings?
I was actually feverishly trying to figure that out myself. I keep saying backdoor, but I'm not sure that's even right. Is that right? Is that a thing people have heard? That's the name that's sticking out in my head, but we do have postings on the company website, which is far easier, but right now there's only one for a chemical operator or technical operator, I think. So Glassdoor. Okay, thank you, Glassdoor. I told someone backdoor. I'm sorry. I tried entering that into my web browser and it came up tilt. Okay, so Glassdoor, our company website. I know we've used Indeed in the past, and I think we still do. And for some of our more experienced positions, we've actually had to employ headhunters to come after people. So that doesn't really help for someone who's in school right now. But Glassdoor, thank you, Kayla. Thank you.
How about you, Josh? What does DuPont do? Or you?
So yes, we obviously we careers.dupont.com. But, you know, for a company like DuPont, I mean, you can imagine everything that gets flooded in there. You know, for me, trying to recruit to a plant site in West Virginia, you know, I rely on going to career fairs. And so I really want the educators to hear this, but, you know, I just attended the WVU career fair, which is the STEM career fair. And I provided 3 recruiters a total of 90 10-minute spots for STEM students to, you know, basically spend 10 minutes video chatting, you know, with me or 2 other recruiters. We only got 30 of our 90 spots filled. I was taken aback by that and frankly disappointed.
So I can chime in a little bit on that. So we've actively started recruiting with WVU, Virginia Tech. One thing that was eye-opening for us is we set up a partnership with WVU School of Business and with their engineering school, where we do some cooperative classes. We sent our folks up there and we actually schedule projects. But the big takeaway for us, the first project we asked them to work on was we asked them, how should we recruit you to come to us? And the feedback we got, quite frankly, shocked us. They didn't want to come to work for Toyota because they thought we were dirty and nasty and old. We had to completely change our recruiting methodology and how we went about letting them know who we were. You know, we thought going to a job fair, setting up a table, that was impressive. That was not impressive. So we've redesigned our websites. We take iPads up there. We had pre-COVID, we had meet and greets at bars up there to try and generate the enthusiasm. We had to completely change our approach. And now we're having to figure that all out due to COVID restrictions.
Okay. Any other comments? I see we have about 10 minutes left in this. We'd like to take the last 5 minutes or so and let Jade go through the final slide about the first 2 networks. So if you don't mind, we're going to open up the floor. You've heard 6 topics, really gauged towards maybe the industry folks on the phone. Is there anything you didn't hear, any question you want to ask to the educators, educator to educator, student to educator, student to industry? Does anyone have another topic that they want to hear people's input in, since we have such a diverse group on this call? Or do we cover everything everybody's concerned about in that hour?
This is Dave Moore. I just wanted to make one comment. A lot of what you're talking about seems to me a little bit of a pipeline problem. You know, we've a lot of kids in West Virginia that are non-traditional college bound or underrepresented groups really don't know what is out there beyond their limited scope in the small towns they come from. In public education, last year we funded a Career Finder electronic program through the College Board that tries to introduce students to what is out there, what the job requirements are, what they should be taking if they want to get ready for them. And the College Board will customize that to the state for a little bit additional money. I think we got the full program this year. It steps down maybe after that a little bit, but maybe making a call to Clayton Birch to see how to get involved in some of that or help support that effort, gets more students into the post-secondary tracks that they need to be on to qualify for the employment opportunities that you have, and then build out from there. But some of it seems to me a pipeline problem for West Virginia generally, just in the low secondary participation rates that we have, and getting the kinds of talent that's currently sitting on the sidelines a little bit in underproductive jobs to help fill some of the needs that you have expressed here today. It's just a comment or a suggestion.
Yeah, and David, can I add on to that? Is there a way that we could create some kind of centralized place where we pull all the internship information together for high school and college students? Because it sounds like there's a lot of information that's floating around, and I think that the easier that we can make it for students to find opportunities, the more likely they're to engage with those things.
We did a bill on that last year too, just this past session. And with the COVID stuff going on, I haven't been able to follow it too much. But through the Department of Commerce, Ed Gaunch really was supposed to try to centralize how you create those kinds of internships. But it was focused on the secondary level in the bill. But post-secondary makes sense to add to it. I don't think he'd be opposed to doing any of that at all.
David,
So
we'd
it's
be
through
really,
Workforce West Virginia. Go ahead.
we'd be really excited to hear more about that person. We have a STEM asset mapping project going on, which part of it is working with WVDE, and also we've heard that there's information at Commerce, and Ann Barth is helping with this to try to pull together all these assets. And First Two could help catalyze that with the funding that we have this year, and then it could be stored in the state somewhere. That would be great. Maintained by the state.
I think that's the kind of stuff. In the last session I was in, there was some discussion of how do you make this kind of sustainable.
Right.
The First Two initiative going forward, and you've got to make some of those structural changes in how you get information to students, I think, to do that.
I will definitely follow up with you about that. And hopefully
Okay.
with industry, I don't know if people like Adam and Craig, where you do have a big company site, might be able to say to your larger site, hey, we've got a pipeline problem in our own state with people who won't, who don't stay here. Could we buy into something to help support the state in a system that might solve that problem, even though it's not the Chemours main website?
Yeah, I think that's reasonable. I think as part of being part of this group, I think we should at least be visible of the opportunities we have.
Right.
While I'm sure no company will lock down and say we'll only hire someone from the First Two network, to have them on the map and have them know of all the opportunities, I think gets, makes your chances a lot better.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, maybe going into that now would be the right thing to do. Add an extra, a little bit of time just to try to actually make some of these connections. So I don't know, Craig, what you had in mind there. If maybe was Jade maybe going to say something? Should we have Erica or Sarah or somebody say something?
What I was going to do is just give a couple 30 seconds of last comments of our panel, and then I'll turn it over to Jade and Erica, whoever else from the First Two network wants to. We have a falling slide, but first and foremost, we'd like to thank everyone for joining this call. I hate to sound really cliche about it, but the time is now to fill this tidal wave of retirements we're coming. I'm actually fairly confident we'll never see as many retirements in one concentrated time as we will in the next, like I said, 5 years. So this is a chance for new graduates or upcoming graduates to really get a foothold into the industry if that's what they truly want. So I hope everyone has taken at least 1 point from this, whether it's industry, education, student, and say, hey, tomorrow I can, make this small change to make this better for our, we're really here for our future students and our new grads. So Adam and I would like to thank you. Again, I'm going to turn it over to Jade, Erica, whoever wants to talk about the First Two network itself. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Craig. I had super high expectations for this panel discussion, but I've got to tell you, all of my expectations were far exceeded. This has been such a rich discussion among professionals who are really invested in seeing our STEM students succeed and seeing our industry, our STEM industry really be supported in a way that helps the state of West Virginia. So I'm just going to put a link in the chat and invite you to partner with us. I mean, let's keep this conversation going. We don't want this to stop with just this discussion. I've heard some awesome ideas for some ways that we can really impact the system, right? And we can create this pipeline and create more opportunities and better communication between higher ed, even in the K through 12 sector as well, so that everyone is aware of these opportunities. So partner with us. We're looking for public and private partners. It is our goal to build a sustainable network of stakeholders so that we can produce more competitive STEM graduates in our growing STEM workforce in our state. I mean, we just got a super exciting announcement the other day about a huge business that's going to impact the economy of this state. Let's work together. I mean, let's do this together. We need partners. It's vital that this partnership is a two-way street. We want you guys to see value in partnering with the First Two Network. And we want to do this to create networking opportunities, workforce development, public relations, and so much more. So here are just a few ways that you can partner with the First Two Network. You can become an active member of the Industry Advisory Board. As I mentioned at the beginning of this session, Adam Smith and Craig Thomas, the facilitators, are the co-chairs of our Industry Advisory Board. And so what we do in our meetings is we have conversations like this and we take notes, and we're working to put these ideas into action to help our students and to help the STEM industry in our state. You can host a summer internship. You can meet virtually with our students. I believe it was Joss mentioned having an opportunity or creating an opportunity for students to meet. We will take advantage of that. We will make sure that those slots are filled. We need opportunities like that for our students. Or you can sponsor an event. There are so many ways that you can partner with the First Two Network. So if you just check out the link that I dropped in the chat, it'll take you to a document that gives you sort of a menu of ways that you can partner with us. If you come up with something, we want to use that idea. So the options are limitless, okay? We're all on the same page here with regard to wanting to help STEM students and wanting to get ahead of this wave of retirement that's looming. Just thank you. This has just been such a rich discussion. I'm going to kick it to Erica just in case she's got something. We've got 1 minute before we've got to close.
The only thing I want to add, thank you so much, all of you. Jade, that was a beautiful summary, but specific contact information, I put my email in the chat. That will work for anything if you need it. But I think we would love all of you who are on this call, who are from industry, to join the Industry Advisory Board if you're willing, or to find someone in your organization to do that. And Craig and Adam, do you have a preferred way for them to get in touch with you about that? Or with Jade would be the best?
Any route is fine.
Okay.
So I just put my email on there too.
Okay, perfect.
Adam, if you don't mind, can you put mine in there too? I don't have access to the chat box because I got the screen.
Sure.
Thanks.
If you become a member on first2network.org, you actually have a social presence for the Industry Advisory Group, and you guys can use that spot if you want.
But the people who are interested in that will need to actually sign up on our website, first2network.org, register, and then you can choose what level of interaction you want to have. But there's a lot of stuff happening underneath the surface of that website. It's it's the Facebook of First Two inside.
Okay, well, if that is it, thank you all so much. If you would like to be entered to win a super cool prize, then join this next session that is just dedicated to you getting the door prize. So thank you all so much. I hope to see you there. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you all. Have a good day.
Have a good day.